and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now is the time for the most entertaining, I've been told, portion of the meeting. Public comments. This is for anybody that has something to talk about that's not on the agenda. Now is the time in this meeting to do so. Well, I guess we're not. I thought so.
My name is Lynn April, and I'm back again about Bonnet Street issues. And I'm mainly here to thank you for the two new 25-mile-an-hour signs going up, and for moving one of the signs from the very front of my house. They're usually placed between homeowners' properties. And the 25-mile-an-hour sign also obscured part of the Battenkill Bicycles shop's commercial sign. Also, the stand-up mid-road speed sign seems to be effective, and many people have commented on it. There could be more of them. I know we lost one in the process. I don't know if it's being fixed or not. But I think people see it as a different image. And it's sort of at their level as they're going by. So that seems to be a really good thing. Maybe a blinker somewhere on one of those or somewhere else that we're trying to get people to read and pay attention to would be helpful. So worst offenders are the trucks of all sizes, shapes, and weights, most particularly construction trucks and motorcycle. 'Tis the season. Jake brakes, compression brakes are horribly noisy. I believe that Bill Drunzik agreed to eliminating one of the parking spaces in front of his business. As you exit Charlie's, the space on the left, so that oncoming traffic can be seen. If the town is not going to repaint white and yellow road lines on Bonnet Street, then the existing space could be painted gray to match the road. It's an idea. So I think not the last issue, but the one I'd like to hear about is the enforcement possibilities for enforcing speed limits. We need enforcement changes. So I'm wondering if anybody can talk to that. Sign a load, it's not going to change what's going on Bonnet Street.
Yeah, so Lynn touched on a couple things. We've added a couple speed limit signs. We've added those mid-road signs. We've increased the police presence, and we've conducted 2 separate speed data reports. It basically shows the average speeds are not tremendously excessive. They're close to the posted limit. There's very few accidents according to the police along there. There's still line of sight issues, like Lynn has referenced. But we're going to continue to monitor things and possibly reassess at the end of the period of looking.
I think the measures that we've taken are quite visual, easily seen. I think the sign in the middle of the road not only lets you know and the speed limit is 25 miles an hour, but it visually narrows the road. That was what I noticed driving through there, is that it feels tighter, which encourages a slower rate of speed. I think that's probably the most effective measure going out, is that.
Yeah, the second one got run over sometime before noon of the first day. we're repairing, I think we'll bring it closer to the roundabout.
Is it possible to do a couple more because there's a great gap in the middle of where it is near Charlie's and the very end near the bridge and in between where we're still there.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually surprising that that further one near the bridge was the one that got hit. So we're gonna fix it and bring it closer to from School Street in.
There's a lot of driveways and side roads. We have to be careful that we don't impede
Understand that, yeah.
traffic.
Jeff could barely get the grader.
There are parking spaces beside the road, which could be impacted by placement of these signs, so and visually, I wouldn't want to see a picket fence of speed limit signs down the way,
Playing the two of them, so.
but I do think it's effective. And as far as the parking space in front of Charlie's, is that?
That's up to you if you want to eliminate.
Yeah, we haven't made any kind of a decision on that. I know that the owner of Charlie's has had said that he wouldn't be opposed to doing that, but it's our road and it's our parking space, so we have those kind of situations throughout the town, and if we eliminate every space that's near a side road or a driveway, we're gonna lose a lot of spaces, which are at a premium. So I think we'll continue to take that under advisement. And
Why is that going under advisement? It's such a, why is that going under advisement?
because we never made a decision on it.
I thought Bill, who was sitting,
Bill doesn't own the space. I mean, he said that he owns the property beside the road, and he said from his perspective, that he would be okay with it. But it's a municipal parking space in the municipal right of way, so we have control over that, not Bill.
so what is everybody I talk to says that's one of the most dangerous things going on there. And then I come here and there's always a reason why it can't happen.
A lot actually did just happen. A whole lot just did happen. They did a lot of things that you would ask for. And so, and I think that if we rush to make a decision about this particular spot, it could set a precedent for other spots in town. And so I think we have to consider it and really look at what the police department's doing and see how some of these new measures play out.
Okay. And so in terms of ticketing and police enforcement of the speed, has that been considered?
Ongoing, yes, yeah.
So where are we?
There is an increased police presence in that area.
Not seen the police car.
Yeah, you're over there, you're not supposed to see them, so go by them. But they have increased it, because I've asked the police chief to monitor that area.
We have other areas in town that have exactly the same request as you, and so we can't dedicate a cruiser or an officer to that one location. But
I leave here never knowing, are you giving it an hour a week? Are you giving it 5 hours a week? I keep asking. I keep pushing. The answer is we have places always. It's part of what goes on here. And traffic is a big deal here now.
and not just on your street, throughout the whole.
I understand that. But there's a lot going on my little street.
That is a national, a state numbered highway. It's not like you live on a residential street. It's a state numbered highway in a downtown of a fairly busy community. So
It says the
You
highway
choose-
is at the
if you choose
bridge.
to live there, you're gonna have to deal with some of the action that takes place in the downtown. Your request for people to go to the posted speed limit is a reasonable request. Your request for the police have a presence there is a reasonable request, and I think we've met quite a number of your concerns. Like I said, we'll continue to keep the parking space under advisement because we're not sure where we're headed with that yet. We're looking at other places in town where they are exactly the same situation, and parking in the downtown is a huge issue at this point.
I understand that.
So each space has a premium attached to it.
This is all part of growth of Manchester. No, it is. But I'm entitled to my quality of life. And I'm entitled to more answers than I get. And then I come here very kind of a little bit pissed off, which is not my nature.
I'm sorry that you feel that way.
Well, I do.
I think we've responded to quite a few of your suggestions, and it continues to be on the list of priorities as far as what we're monitoring there and doing. I can't give you a number of hours of police presence because we have a limited police force in Manchester, and they're doing a lot more than just traffic control. So
I get it.
unfortunately, we're dealing with the things that other communities of a much larger size deal with. A few years ago now, back during COVID, because of a decision that was made by the state, our police and rescue calls went up by 1,400% in 1 year. That's a huge burden on a small local department. So they're dealing with a lot of things. This continues to be on a priority list, and I think we're addressing a number of the issues. I'm not arguing with you. I'm agreeing with you.
I don't receive it as an argument. As more of a statement. And I come and then I never know what's going on.
But you just saw what was going on. We did visible things in the last few weeks.
There were 3 rather simple things done. The others that I'm bringing up are not as easy. And it was interesting that one of the signs was posted right in front of my house. You don't post signs in front of people's houses. You do them in between.
If we can't put any signs in front of anybody's house, where are we going to put them?
In between. That's where most of them go. So,
There's I'm laughing, but I'm understanding what you're saying. And there's thought that goes into placement of signs as to, there's a number of businesses on that street. Sometimes there's sensory overload because there's just too many signs. And blocking out the scenery and changing my mind. But it's, they can be relocated. And if somebody's dissatisfied, as you were with sign placement, it can be dealt with.
was remedied right away.
So not an issue at this point.
But I sort of resent not knowing what's going on when I'm coming with major issues. Do you want me to come to every select board meeting? No.
I'm wondering, can you be more specific when you say you don't know what's going on?
Unless I see the sign in front of me, I don't know. Are we talking to Bill or are we not? Are we doing Jake break ordinance? Are we doing these are serious things.
We did the studies, we've added signs, we're taking the parking spot into consideration. There's already on that parking spot, there's probably a state mandated space before you can park at that curb. There's a triangle that leaves space. So I'm sure that that's what the state probably feels is enough room. I think that Scott just said, for example, that there haven't been any accidents there. So the fear of having an accident, I mean, that's always a possibility, but there There hasn't been one. So if you say, you know, it's very dangerous, you can't see, but there hasn't been any problem with an accident, then I think that
I just don't buy that because,
so that, my point,
okay,
right there, I don't buy it, is not,
I buy it because
It isn't-
the only other way I can find out whether my opinion is held by others. I don't
so-
talk to people that always have my opinion.
I need to move this along because we've got a full agenda, but, we will continue to consider the parking space. We will, as far as letting you know what the schedule is for police officers to be there, that's a more difficult issue because they have other.
Well, I'm not-
I just don't think we
I'm
can.
not interested in their schedule. I'm interested in, are they devoting enough time to make it effective? Because otherwise, it's pointless.
And I'm gonna thank you for your input on that.
Okay,
And,
I'll leave you with some sign things to look at.
you're always welcome.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments? Yeah, I just want to touch on this, on the engine braking, the Jake brakes. Yours isn't the only street where we're getting complaints about that, and it's something that we're giving some consideration at this point. So, anyways, I'm seeing no other public comments, so we'll move into the approval of the minutes from 6:17. Everyone was here.
I was on Zoom.
We were on Zoom, but we were all here, so
I'll move to approve the minutes from 6:17.
moved and seconded, all in favor, say aye. Aye. 4-0. And we need to reappoint our deputy health officer.
Yeah, so Dr. Tom Sterling has agreed to re-up again. I've got to approve him and sign off on it and get up to the state.
I move to reappoint Dr. Thomas Sterling as the deputy health officer.
Second.
Moved and seconded, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. That's 4-0.
Ivan, can you sign that, please?
Okay, we're gonna review the fiscal year 2024 audit.
Kyle Lucia here.
did you change the agenda?
Not.
Because my agenda has the due process. Is that moved?
Sorry,
That's next. That's number 7.
Oh, I didn't,
Kinda close
okay,
together.
sorry. That's my fault. I know, told
It's not
somebody.
just me. Kyle, welcome.
Hey, thank you. I'm Kyle Lucier from Telling and Hillman. We performed the fiscal year 24 audit for the financial statements. I'm just wanted to thank you all for having us back again to perform the audit. We worked with Mike, Greta, Lori, and Peter also helped out in figuring out some of the stuff we were working on. So we were thankful for all their help in getting the audit done. I enjoyed working with them, and they're always a pleasure to be here and having them help us out. Our job as the auditor is to issue an opinion on the financial statements and do they materially represent the true financial position of the town. So on basically page 1 of our report is where you'll find the audit opinion. And what we have here is we have what we call a clean audit opinion that's excuse me, that states that the financial statements in the report are in accordance with a generally accepted accounting principles. And they are materially with the materials instances, they truly represent the town's financial position. With that said, there was a couple findings in the report that we did have that we are required to share in our report and with you guys, the board. The first finding was just that basically it was just a lack of verification and documentation on a few of our payroll payments that we looked at. And basically it was lacking approvals, signatures, things of that nature, or they weren't easy to follow and understand what the hours that were being reported actually were. So I can say I was here today working on the fiscal year 25 sampling of the payroll stuff and accounts payable. And that was not an issue in the next year's audit. So that has been worked on and cleaned up. And I know that, and I could and it was actually very easy and simple to go through and see what's going on and all the work that's been going on. So it was very much appreciated. And I was able to see everyone's efforts and it worked, it looked out nice. And that won't be a finding in next year's audit. And the second finding is one that was in the previous years as well, is that the general fund checking account doesn't reconcile to the general ledger amount that shows for that amount. It's not, again, it's not a material difference. So that's why it doesn't affect our opinion on the financial statements, but it is something of note. Just as the fact that it's not, the bank reconciliations don't reconcile to what you're saying in the financial accounting system.
Can you give a little more detail on that? Is when it qualifies as material, is that like a percentage that it's?
Yeah, it's a calculated dollar amount based off, we look at the total revenues, either total revenues for the town or total assets, whatever is greater, and we base it off, it's a calculation based off of that number. And that comes up with a materiality number for a dollar amount that we use. So basically every time that we try to verify something and it's off, and then let's say we have a discrepancy like this, that will get added into our materiality. So let's say our materiality is 20,000 and something's off 10,000 from what we're saying we can verify it to be. Then we have another 10, if there's something else that's now 15,000, now we're over our materiality limits and we have to address that. And it's either affects our opinion or we have to address with a journal entries into the accounting system somehow to figure out what it is. So that's kind of how materiality works.
Well, Heidi, in that first, this is on page 71 of the audit, that first material weakness, that was basically summer staff at the rec that hadn't been signed or hadn't been approved, and that was last summer, and we caught that in the last year's audit with the audit process, and so we fixed it for this year. That's why it won't be a process going forward. And then the reconciliation of the general fund, that's so Mike does a monthly bank account reconciliation with the general ledger, but he wasn't reconciling the bank statement to the bank statement. So now he's doing that too. So sorry, Kyle.
Oh, no worries. So did that answer your question about the material? Okay. Yeah, so I mean, so those are the two findings that were addressed. I think the other thing, just to go pick up on Scott, was just I think the police department in having timesheets too. I think I don't remember if they wasn't timesheets or if before, or if they just revamped them, but they definitely made it, the police department's payroll are a little more harder to figure. They're not quite as straightforward as everyone else per their union agreements, and their updated timesheets definitely helped when I was looking at that to be able to track and verify they're getting paid along the lines of their union agreements. Yes. So on page 12 of the financial of the report here is kind of where the financial statements begin. I don't know how much detail you'd like me to go into going over the actual numbers. I'm I'm willing to open up to questions, or I can just start going through this.
If you want to address the unassigned funds, I know we've talked about that in the budget process last fall, so.
Yeah, and so if we go to page 14, of the report here, it's the balance sheet for the governmental funds. In here, we have listed our major general governmental funds. And on that page here, you can see the unassigned fund balance in the general fund as the June 30th, 2024, was 418,982. Then the other unassigned, only other unassigned governmental funds actually is in the comes from recreation fund. I mean, that's like, and the only reason that's in unassigned right now is because there is a negative fund balance in that fund of 175,000. So those have to go on unassigned. Because the recreation fund is a special revenue fund, which normally all those fund balances are either assigned or committed, and they're not in unassigned balance. But all negative fund balances have to be unassigned and take away from your general fund, unassigned fund balance, basically. Because the presumption in that case is that either the recreation fund is going to get enough revenue to come out of the deficit, or the general fund is going to have to cover it. So that's why it has to go into that show as unassigned in that fund. Just to pick up on that idea is just if you go to page 16 is the statement of revenues and expenditures and changes in fund balances. This is where you can actually see the change in fund balance for the year in each fund. We can see that the general fund balance went down by 230,000 in that year. The CERC fund went down 153,000, and all the other non-major funds went up 360,000. And back at the end of the report has there's the details for of all of the individual non-major special revenue funds. Yeah. Let's see. And then, I mean, just other thing of note in here is just starting on page 52, we have the budget to actual statement, where you can see this is for the general fund budget, what was budgeted versus the actual revenues and expenses. So that's where you can find that starting on page 52. Is there any questions about what you're looking at?
And we have a question from the audience.
Steve Nichols.
Can you hear me?
We can now.
I've got a couple questions. I need to understand why the general fund balance does not match the balance sheet. Did I get that right?
I don't have an answer for why it doesn't balance. We would recommend, if I knew why it was off, we would recommend an adjustment to get it to balance. So that's, I don't know why it's off.
Isn't it fair to the taxpayer for somebody to realize why it's off and share that with us? I mean, you're the auditor. It seems to be a problem.
So that difference, what we're talking about, is not material enough for our statements to show that with it not being corrected, it's still, the financial statements still accurately represent the financial position of the town. So
what you're telling me is that it would not show if there was any pilferage as such.
I didn't hear.
bridges, it said it would not show.
What I can say is that it's off that cash statement is, that reconciliation is off an immaterial amount to our financial statement.
But that doesn't answer my question. You're avoiding my question. You know, there's a problem. Let's fix it. Where is the problem and how did it get there?
I don't have an answer for why it's off. You can keep asking that question, Steve, but I don't have an answer for why it's off.
Well, I think we need to get that answer, Ivan. Don't you want that answer?
I think we have to continue to try to do the best job that we can to have these numbers represent what's going on in town. I can remember when Howard Daly was the treasurer for the fire department. He would spend weeks trying to figure out why it was off by a nickel. And it's at some point, you just have to make a ledger adjustment and try to be more careful going forward. I don't think any of us know exactly why it was off. And I do understand back in the 1970s, we did have a town treasurer that ran off for $170 some odd $1,000, and it was a nickel here and a dime there. And I understand Steve's concern. This is not something that's been consistently there throughout the audits. It's something that showed up this time. Again, the auditors have no idea why the discrepancy, because they don't run the books, they just review them. And we'll continue to try to be diligent on trying to make sure that these numbers reconcile. But when Kyle says that it doesn't meet the standard for being a material discrepancy, it's still a concern anytime the numbers don't reconcile. So we'll try to continue to have clean books going forward. We may never know the answer to this question. And it is of I won't say insignificant, but it may not be worth it to chase this nickel. You know what I mean? We'll just try to be more diligent going forward.
We don't know that though, Mike. We don't know if obviously what we're talking about, the town is missing money.
There's always prior period adjustments being made. And that's an ongoing thing with audits and closing the books and when they come in and audit and things. So, after the fact, they indicate that we should change certain things and we make those changes happen. So that's why it's going to be off a little bit, but it's not material.
No, I understand that, but Ivan, I don't think we should just push this under the carpet and say, well, we're going to do better moving forward. I understand that. But if there is a serious discrepancy to where there are missing funds, I think we need to look into this.
Well, Steve, you came in after he talked about the two findings that they found, which are on page 71. I think you have a copy of the audit. And we've addressed both of those findings. And actually, on page 72, you see the management review of the audit findings. So those two things have been corrected. And those are the findings that the auditors found. So we've addressed those.
I'm sorry, though, in all due respect, I don't agree with you. I think there's an issue, and I think that by avoiding it, I think we're digging a hole that we don't follow up and hold people accountable. I'm sorry.
Steve, I'm going to interject here. In your experience, how often do you run into these kind of discrepancies?
Yeah, I mean, if in a discrepancy like this, it happens. That a lot of times when it's immaterial, I kind of what Scott kind of alluded to is you make a GL entry to make them balance. A lot of times, and that's how I think that was something that I don't think I think we questioned about that, doing that, and it was, I don't think Mike wanted to do it. I don't know if you wanted to look into it more, but I know I want to say it's something, an adjustment that we didn't want to make, or it wasn't. So I mean, so we just left it the way it was. And just kind of go on the point of, just because that they don't reconcile, I think it doesn't mean there's missing funds. I guess I want to make that clear too. I think Steve keeps saying that means there's missing funds. That's not what it means. It just means there's an error in an entry. It could mean there's an error in an entry. It could mean there's unaccounted for outstanding movement in the bank account that's not in the reconciliation. I mean, it could be other things besides missing funds.
Carryovers.
So how do you figure it out?
If it was a material amount, we would have to figure it out. If it's because of the lower magnitude, if it's an immaterial amount, you can say, well, how much money do we want to spend trying to make this reconcile? Because it takes hours, it takes time, and you don't know where the problem is. In our recent town report, there was a place where two numbers were transcribed in a tax rate. I happened to use those numbers in my calculations, and I'm going, oh, holy cow, this doesn't reconcile. How did the tax rate go up by this much? And it took me a long time to find that there were two numbers transcribed in the tax rate. These things happen. And that one didn't have any material effect anyways, because it was just in the town report. But if anybody such as myself was going through that report, they wouldn't be able to reconcile it and make it work. That's a very small report. There's not a lot of numbers in the town report, and it's kind of easy to find the problem. When you're looking at a town with a $7 million budget and all the moving pieces that go along with it, Mike could spend weeks or even months trying to find why this doesn't reconcile, and he might spend weeks and months and never find anything. And so at some point you say, okay, we just need to make a journal entry and move on. But not, it's not being swept under the carpet. I mean, it got a notation from our auditors. And if it were to continue to happen, then we know that we have a problem. But at this point in time, I don't think there's anything nefarious going on here. And we, you and I go through this conversation with every audit. I think we've got good people doing good work. And there are a number of fail-safe measures within our system so that nobody has the power to have control over the numbers without somebody taking a look at it. So,
And we took action.
and Scott, and we did, yeah, that was what Scott was talking about in the management. We're going to now reconcile on a monthly basis to both the bank statement and the general ledger, and that may be where the problem was.
And to add to that, I mean, there is also a segregation of duties built into there too, having someone else do the bank reconciliation besides the owner of the accounts as well. So there are segregation that already in place here as well, which is good.
Ivan,
Yes.
Can you- the $175,000 deficit for the rec area, how did that come about?
I think that developed over the course of time when there was loans from certain funds to pay for development at the rec park with the intention that the rec park would pay it back over time, and that didn't happen. And so last year, I think, select board agreed to forgive those loans, and that part of it hasn't been fully done yet, but some of it Mike has done. Then this remaining bit will probably be done by you guys in the up.
And Steve, some of that dates all the way back to Applejack Field. That was the big one. That was a $300,000 loan. And we were loaning money basically to ourselves and forcing ourselves to pay it back through one pocket to another. And and you were here for most of that discussion, so.
Now, my other question is, Ivan, you and I had the discussion of the general fund and showing line items, payable or receivables, and reinstitute those line items under the general fund. Would this answer some of these questions that we're asking?
So are we talking about just the due to and from other funds lines? Is that what you're
Yeah.
asking, Steve?
Yeah,
Because we do have that in the financial statement.
right, Ivan, in the town report under general fund, I don't recall line items there. Am I right or wrong?
Whole book's full line.
Yeah, there are hundreds of line items. I'm not sure what your question was, Steve.
In the general fund, does it indicate where we're taking money from for what in that general fund?
Well, every line item in the budget, which is the general fund budget, on the expenditure side, speaks to where money's going to be spent in a department. In each one of those line items, and there's hundreds of them, there
Right.
are thousands of transactions that make that number. So if there's hundreds of line items and there's thousands of transactions, we could be looking at hundreds of thousands of transactions when you put it all together. So what you're looking at in the budget is a lump number for each category, but then each one of those categories could have hundreds or even thousands of transactions. So I'm not really sure how that relates to your question, but
I want to just touch base on something real quick, and then I'll get off here. I'm going back to the Circus Smirkus event 3 years ago, when money was designated to put into the general fund line item for a children's mushroom at the rec area in the play area of the pool. Now, that, to my knowledge, has not been spent. So where is that money?
That would be in the capital account. So that'd be in the rec capital account right now, Steve.
Now, how do we know that, Scott? How do we know that that's in there if we don't have it line item?
I guess you don't. But
Well, that's
we
what
can't
I-
list, we have thousands due to from movements during the course of a year. We couldn't possibly list all of those.
It just,
that money is there and it's in that account. I mean, it's not accounted for separately. It's lumped in with the other capital items, but it is specifically in the rec area capital budget. And should it come time to spend that money, that's the account that it would be taken from.
So is that something that the board decided to use those funds?
They probably earmarked it for that and then put it into capital
And-
park.
It just, I mean, so I think what's kind of just to hit on that a little bit, if it was in the general fund, if that some money was, let's say, if it was going to sit in the general fund, then in the general fund, I mean, it would then become assigned fund balance in the general fund. And that would be a way you to track it, but when it's in the recreation fund, all the funds are always already assigned, yes. The fact that they're in there means they're assigned. So I mean, yeah, so there's not a, so our statements that we have here, there's not a separate, it's not set, that's not a, something, all the individual things that are, the town wants to assign them for, actually use them for or not, don't get listed out.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Anyone have any other questions?
Are there any other questions? Kyle asks. From me. I think Steve must have covered it all. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And the document does include management's response to any issue that was raised, and it's a public document.
Thanks, Kyle. Kyle came down today and spent the whole day prepping for the next audit, so he had a lot of time to kill in between sessions, so thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Previous. Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you, Kyle. All right, Greg, now we're on to your favorite agenda item.
No, it's only because I told one of our citizens that it was the reverse and they joined the meeting. And so the reason it happened was because it was actually number 6. If you just open the documents, you see what happened. I had all the documents open that were, nobody cares.
As I do. Okay. Well, we're there. So agenda item 7 is to possibly affirm the right to due process resolution.
You want me to read it?
Yeah. But I don't.
Affirming the constitutional rights of all people in the town of Manchester. Whereas both the 5th and 14th Amendments to the United States Constitution guarantee the right of due process within its borders, stating that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, without exception. And whereas recent actions by federal authorities regarding detention of legal residents without due process represents a violation of these constitutional protections. And whereas the government's unchecked violation of any person's constitutional rights creates both a threat and a potential license for further governmental abuse. And whereas public officials must speak out against such abuses to discourage those who would dismantle the rule of law and divide our communities through fear. And whereas the Town of Manchester Select Board unequivocally condemns all violations of due process and other unlawful acts. And whereas the Town of Manchester affirms its unwavering commitment to protecting the constitutional rights of all people in our town, regardless of citizenship status, national origin, political belief, or any other identity. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Select Board of the Town of Manchester, Vermont unequivocally condemns all officially sponsored governmental actions which intentionally deny any person their constitutionally protected rights, including, but not limited to, due process of law for our residents. The Town of Manchester affirms its commitment to protecting the constitutional rights of all persons in our town, regardless of citizenship status, national origin, political belief, race, religion, sex, gender identity or expression, sexual orientation, age, disability, or socioeconomic status. The Select Board pledges to oppose any policy or action, local, state, or federal, which targets and/or denies due process to its residents based on any of the aforementioned identities or positions, and to defend Manchester as a community rooted in equal justice, accountability, and the dignity of all. Signed by the Select Board today, the first day of July 2025.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, this was brought to my attention by several people in town. There was an article about this in Vermont Digger, and I think that was the first, I think that's what they brought to my attention was the article. And many towns in Vermont have since passed this proclamation or resolution. It was first passed in Rutland City. Much of this verbiage comes from that original proclamation. And I thought it was worth bringing to the town, and I think it addresses something we should be behind. Personally, that's my opinion, but that's why it was brought to the board.
Shaftesbury and Bennington have also passed this already.
Yeah. Rutland, Shaftesbury, I think there are a lot of others that I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure that
Montpelier, Proctor, Middletown, Springs.
the timing on this is connected to the cleansing of our communities of illegal aliens. And of course, the national discussion on a governmental level is, do non-citizens have inalienable rights from the Constitution? From my understanding is that they do have the right to due process under our Constitution. So I think this reaffirms that notion. Steve,
I agree. I think that the support from the select board should happen. Stereotypically, I want to just share something with you that I have been patriotic and a citizen of this community for a long time, and having been an Eagle Scout and observing downtown at the roundabout a flag, a United States flag being flown upside down. Now, I am here to tell you that somebody's going to take that flag. And I want to know if this covers this proclamation covers situations like that.
Steve, that flag was there as part of one of the gatherings. That flag is not there. It is not a flag from the town of Manchester or any affiliation to that. The flag, I drive through there several times a day. I don't see the flag unless I'm missing it.
Just a comment, in all due respect, I don't give a damn if it is part of the town of Manchester, if it's part of a roundabout gang that's down there. It shouldn't be done, especially in our community. I don't care who it is.
I don't think this particular proclamation addresses somebody's right to free speech. And I think that flying the flag upside down, Steve, is I don't know if it was a naval issue or something that was a sign of distress, the country in distress. So that may be what they're trying to get across. I don't know. I can't speak for them, but I think you're talking about a speech issue. This is an issue related to upholding the Constitution.
Bob Stanner.
Yeah, I just would weigh in on that. Very briefly, that the flag issue has nothing to do with the proclamation at hand.
Any further discussion on the proclamation?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to adopt the resolution.
Second.
Matter discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that's 4-0.
On a side note, it's sad that we actually have to do that.
Yes, Anita.
Respectfully, as the municipal part of the town of Manchester, may I please have a copy that we signed recorded in the municipal law of the town of Manchester?
I'm sure that will take place.
Ivan, we can't hear her.
She was just, making sure that she would get a copy of this proclamation, so it would get properly recorded in the town clerk's office.
Thank you.
Now I'm paying particular
I am too.
attention to the numbers. We're going to possibly approve a public records policy. The town often responds to public records requests. And this proposed form would clarify and assist the process.
You've got a copy of the policy and along with the form that we'll be using for requests, inspections and copying public records. This is a template, came from the VLCT. And it's something I had done in Wilmington and Ludlow prior to this stop. It just helps the town staff clarify what the person's looking for, because oftentimes they're not really sure and they're just kind of casting a wide net. So this will help the town find what they're looking for. So it clarifies the issue. They're not required to fill this out and we can't make them fill it out, but it helps us. And usually most requesters are willing to do it because they want to get what the document they're looking for.
And when people are making a request and looking for documents, does that usually happen with you or with the town clerk or with both? And
She has her own process. Sometimes they go directly to her and she has a system actually. They can sign up and ask for a request that way. Oftentimes we'll get walk-ins or we'll get phone calls and we try to clarify what they're looking for. And this will help do that.
I mean, it looks like it would make the process smoother.
Hoping.
Is there,
I'll move to approve the public records policy.
that was a motion.
I'll second.
Oh,
Sorry.
Heidi got it. Heidi gets a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye, that's 4-0. And now we're back to something we discussed at our last meeting to review and possibly amend the town's fee schedule.
The hard copy in front of you has one change that was made, and that's under the general fee schedule. Which only has the one change, I believe, on it anyways. So if you want to address that one first, probably the easiest one. So the one change is the winter vault entombment. It was 150 prior to this. And the recommendation has been for 300 for someone that's going to be buried in the Factory Point Cemetery, and then 500 for other outside cemeteries. But we've also put a date in there that the bodies must be removed by May 15th, or there's $10 per day charge. And I guess apparently what's been happening is it's just some of the funeral homes have been slow to recover the remains sometimes. So we want to make sure that happens on a timely basis.
Okay, so it's just that one change.
That one on the general fund schedule.
Addendum A, which seems to be reasonable.
Planning and zoning, you'll see the highlighted yellow ones with, that's the recommended change. The fee that's current is the one that's not highlighted. Peters and Elias have recommended those certificate of occupancy changes, basically because they have to go out there another time and takes time to do that. And then they have to do a little write-up. So, rather than $25 and $50 for a complex one, they recommended 100.
And what's the trigger to go from simple to complex? Is that clearly defined?
No, it's a little vague. And basically it's like if it's a restaurant, like the Greek pizza restaurant I just went through, that was a complex one. A simple one would be somebody just added a deck to their house.
So there's no way to put any kind of real parameters on it. It's a judgment call.
I mean, if somebody argued, hey, no, mine should be a simple one, then sure would cave and give it to them. That's basically it on the planning and zoning. The Parks and Rec, we amended that last year, actually, you amended that last year with the pool rates. And so the only changes we have basically are the field use changes, recommended here after talking with Brian. Eckhart and McClellan Fields, we had a field use agreement that listed out exactly how much they could pay for the first, I don't know, how much was it, 10 years? 9 years? And that's ended now. And Brian's recommending, and I agree with him, that we go to those highlighted yellow numbers. $20 for the construction participants and 25 for non. The others are fairly minimal changes. The outdoor pavilion rental, for 3 hours undercover for a resident, 25 doesn't sound unreasonable, nor 40 too unreasonable for a non-resident.
I know because I just made a reservation in Montpelier that it's $25 for their pavilion rental too. So that's good.
But you're a non-resident, right?
The person who made the reservation is a resident. I just put everything together.
Okay.
Well, in the town list, there's nothing's changed. I mean, North Shore Rescue Squad, I know about that one.
Oh, yeah, I threw it in there because I think Greg had wanted to see the leases. We talked about it verbally, but
Yeah, we didn't have a.
yeah, I have that. This, the rescue squad, that's contracted. And we also receive dispatch fees, and then we have to pay them dues and fees for their services. But this is the actual term of the lease for the building.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the only thing I'm wondering about is the certificate of occupancy for simple application fee seems a little, I don't know why it's just standing out at me going from 25 to 100 versus maybe 25 to 75.
But they actually go there. They have to go there. I think that's reason.
Oh, I'm not, I realize, but if it is just a deck, I think they're gonna go there, but they're not necessarily gonna spend all that much time looking over the compliance factor. I don't know whether,
They come back and have to write up something too.
okay,
There's additional time besides just
yeah,
driving there and back.
just checking.
Steve Nichols.
Question related, it has some relation to the fees, but what's the policy on the sponsorship of Applejack Fields, banners, et cetera, inside the stadium that had been neglected for a couple of years? Is that back on track?
It is, it's back on track. Katie Dixon down the end of the table here has been working on it diligently. We've approached other businesses, and some of the businesses that were listed have actually gone away. So we've looked for new volunteers, new donors, and so we will have new signs up shortly.
It's just a question of that being neglected, was what type of a lost revenue was there?
I couldn't answer that, Steve.
Okay, thanks, Scott.
Okay, on the,
Actually, this is kind of a morbid question, but it's like,
How many people are in the,
why are other cemeteries putting their bodies in this cemetery? Are there not enough
in our vault.
tombs or vaults rather, winter vault entombment places? And do you have to store them there and not somewhere else?
I'm speculating a little bit here that it's the middle of the winter, and so they can't be buried immediately.
Get that.
So they have to be stored somewhere. Assuming they're maybe passed away in Manchester, and they're gonna be buried in California, let's say, I don't know. but they have to be stored for a while.
There are residents in Manchester who have committed to be buried somewhere else.
Okay.
And because I know of, and they're residents of Manchester and they die in Manchester, but they're gonna be buried with a spouse who died decades ago that lives somewhere else. And so that's how that happens.
Okay.
It's the closest to the funeral home too.
Need a motion, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the fee changes as presented to the planning and zoning, Parks and Rec, and the general fee study.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Now that's approved 4-0. The one fee that we're still struggling with is, okay,
Yeah, the parking spot.
the parking. So payment in lieu of park.
Payment in lieu, yeah. So,
I went to that meeting.
do you want to start then?
Well, no, I mean, no, I don't have, but like they're working. Yeah.
Right, and so what they would like to see happen is we couldn't come up with a number, a serious number. I've asked several engineers in and around town and also historically how we got to that original number. And it's just, there's no really rhyme or reason. And basically it's because each situation is unique. So if you own a piece of property that you could use for this, it's different than if you didn't own a piece and you have to pay separately, you have to pay for the cost of the land. So what we put together is we would like to leave the number at 15,000.
Minimum of 15.
Okay, hold on. So 15,000, but subject to select board approval, which could change. That number could change depending on the application. Now, developer will get that chance to come in front of you, get that number, and then decide whether to move forward with the application. And if they do move forward, they have numbers to give the DRB in their permit application.
I mean, I think that makes sense on a case by case basis, but giving a realistic or more realistic number from the beginning and then also clarifying that number before they get too far down the road makes a lot of sense.
And some of the discussion actually centered around the possibility of lowering that number. If we found an applicant that we wanted to assist in the particular situation. And that's, the DRB was kind of talking about that as some, so that's why you guys would make that decision.
Go to you or.
Yeah. You have to sign. Just, yeah. He's got to sign that.
Steve.
How does this encourage small or any business coming or discourage any business coming to Manchester?
This is for only deficit parking situations, not situations where a business is going to a building where there's adequate parking for what they have for seats or whatever the commercial uses are. It's for businesses that build something with more seats than they have parking for. So it's only for very specific circumstances.
But my question is, that doesn't help the situation on parking. It's almost like these businesses are paying off the town to build a restaurant or a building.
It helps, the money goes into the parking fund, which we use to build that lot behind Walgreens and other opportunities like that could arise.
But I guess I'm going back to, and it doesn't take care of the problem.
Building parking lots take care of the problem.
They do?
Yeah, if you need to park your car, if you build a parking lot, that's where you park your car.
Yeah, you may remember, Steve, that when you were on the board, that we reconfigured the municipal parking lot down in the depot off from Highland Avenue at the bottom, off of Highland and Elm. And it's, to this point, money from the parking fund has been used for those kind of projects. Heidi referenced the Walgreens parking lot, and that was done entirely with money from the parking fund, with the town's half of that project, and the other half was by the property owner that owns Walgreens. In the future, there may be opportunities to redevelop sites that aren't being used into parking, and this money would go toward those kind of efforts. It all is intended to go toward resolution of the parking issue, and to say, well, people are just paying off the town. This is to be used with pre-existing buildings that sit on a lot that can't support the amount of parking need. The building was built prior to zoning, maybe even prior to the automobile. And we have buildings in town, mostly right in the middle of Main Street, that have no lot whatsoever. They would never be able to be occupied by any kind of business if they had to meet the town's parking requirements. So this is to allow reuse of those buildings, but the property owner, the applicant, has to pay toward this parking account so the town can continue to try to find ways to improve parking throughout the downtown. I hope that.
That answers my question. I have had conversation with Gordon, and there's some things down the back burner. So yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay, fee schedule, Energy Committee. There they are. Hi, Carl.
I can't, however. So I wanted to cover three things. One was the Energy Committee, the Energy Fair, which we had here, May 17th. And the second was the purchasing policy that was recently enacted. And the third was the MERP grant. So I guess my first question, did you get the handouts that I sent in last week?
Yes, it's in their package.
Well, the first one was on the Energy Fair. And there's a couple of pages with the vendors and their comments. I'm not going to read them, but basically everyone was very happy with the affair. We had between 50 and 70 people. One vendor thought it was 100. I don't think there were that many. It was a big success. One comment was we should have had more things. And I referenced the fact that last year, Arlington Energy Committee, their energy fair, they had music, politicians, free food, movies. Hardly anyone showed up. And a week later, we had it here, just like we did this year. And we had, again, about 70 people. But the bottom line is the vendors were very happy. They saw enough people, they signed up for the audits. And I was thrilled that Brock Community Action, and it's now called Cornerstone, Neighbor Works of Western Vermont. They were happy. Efficiency Vermont was here, Green Mountain Power, and a couple of private vendors for solar and heat pumps. It was a big success. One criticism that came out was the noise level in this room was overwhelming. And I actually think with the addition of the insulation, it's worse. I'd recommend maybe some sound dampening. Next year, we're going to have the energy fair at the library for a couple of reasons. One is the room. It should be a little bit more subdued in terms of noise. But secondly, I think there'll be a little spillover in terms of other people coming to the library for something else and seeing the event. and coming in. So it'll be our fourth one to experiment and see what happens.
Have you ever done it at the Park House?
Ever done what?
Have you ever had it at the Park House?
No, that was our other option. But we went for the library. Yeah. The only problem in the library is parking. We'll have to, like all the vendors at the park, meet across the street. Hopefully we'll contact the church and they'll be accommodating. And also hopefully Bill Junzi and Advanced Eye Care can let us use their parking lots Saturday. So we actually have a date. I think it's May 16th, 2026. Next is the purchasing policy. You folks just recently passed a purchasing policy. And the Energy Committee would like to have you add one sentence to the opening paragraph. Right now, the opening paragraph is two sentences. One says the town shall purchase goods and services using a competitive process with overall goal of receiving the best product at the lowest price. And the second sentence is procurement shall be based on the quality of the goods and services offered, the cost, and the ability of the vendor to provide future maintenance. And then looking at the history, what's the history dealing with the town? So we on the Energy Committee would like to add one sentence to the end of that, which is quality of goods and service shall include consideration of 1, all operating costs, 2, reliability, 3, ease of installation and operation, 4, noise or other environmental pollution, 5, the cost and frequency of maintenance, and 6, the ability to be recycled or repurposed at the end of useful service. You know, I've been here and I used my little radial tire analogy where when they first came out, I didn't buy them because they were twice as expensive as bias ply, but they wound up lasting 3 times longer. So they're cheaper. We like for the town, whoever purchases anything, to really consider the electric option, whether it's a lawnmower, a car for here, police cars, really should consider it. And they're quieter, they require almost no maintenance. I've had an electric car for over 4 years. Never had an oil change. Never had to worry about gas. I had solar panels put on my house 11 years ago, so they're paid off. I now basically drive for free. And it's quiet and it's fast. The police don't have to worry about being outrun if they get police cars. Lawnmowers, leaf blowers, weed whackers, so much quieter. I switched from gas lawnmowers. I had a Toro, I had a Husqvarna. Every time I tip them over to change sharpen the blade, I bring them to Brown's because the carburetor would flood. And I have an electric one for years. Tip it over, take off the blade, sharpen it, put it back on, no problem. And it's quieter, it's just as efficient. So, you know, we really would love you to consider adding that third sentence to the opening paragraph.
Before we move on from that, Scott, have you given that some thought as far as?
Not.
Yeah, so we will take that under advisement, but.
Great, thank you.
Steve's hand up. I don't know if you're gonna wait till.
You're still making your
Ralph finishes his presentation.
Are you still making your presentation?
Yeah, we had a third thing to cover.
I still wait.
Yeah, so you're gonna talk about the MERP now?
You can talk about the MERP, yeah.
Yeah.
I think my wife is right. I need hearing aids or else you guys are all mumbling. Have to speak up. Anyway, so the MERP, you know about it, Municipal Energy Resilience Program. So it's intended for towns like ours to reduce energy consumption, reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, and help towns like us become more resilient as climate change increases the stressors on our infrastructure and finances. So as part of the grant process, we as a town received a free and very comprehensive energy audit. I urge you to read it. And there were several areas identified that will reduce energy use and increase comfort for anybody in this building. So number one, insulate this town hall. Number two, seal up the air leaks from doors, windows, vents, in both buildings. Replace old leaky windows here at Town Hall. Fuel switch from fossil fuel, like the oil burner, to electricity, like the heat pumps. And then bring the building into compliance with ADA by making the bathroom handicapped accessible. In addition, the energy audit recommended installing solar panels on the roof and installing EV chargers at Town Hall and the public safety facility. So far, as far as I know, these things have been done. This ceiling and roof have been insulated and the vents sealed. Cold climate heat pumps have been ordered from GSK Climate Control. I believe one of them was already installed at the public safety building when their air conditioner broke. And most of the town hall windows were not replaced, but Jim Hand and I measured, and we had 49 inserts cut, and the vast majority, maybe 38 to 40, were actually assembled and installed. So the original estimate from the audit was $94,000 to replace the windows. The window dresser inserts will cost about $3,500. So huge savings. And my opinion, they work as well or better than new windows because you have extra 3 layers of air insulation. So the work that still needs to be done, insulate the remainder of the roof and ceiling here, seal all the air leaks, town hall and public safety building, insulate the exterior walls of the town hall, get the bathroom ADA compliant, install EV chargers at town hall and next door, and install solar on the roof. So sealing the air leaks, renovating the bathroom, installing EV chargers and solar panels are relatively straightforward, and they're all recommended. What's more complicated is insulating the rest of this building. It's complicated because if you go up this ladder here, like I did, and look over the drop ceiling, it's a nightmare. It's pipes and wires and vents, and there's nothing to stand on. It's just this drop ceiling that won't hold anything. So it's very complicated. I don't have an answer, but I have gone and looked with a couple of insulating guys, and they have a couple of suggestions that I think make sense. So that needs to be done. The exterior walls, if you remember, to do it right, the estimate was $400,000 to put 4 inches of polyisocyanurate on the outside and then re-brick with a veneer all around. It's very expensive. I don't think, that the town's going to afford that. I'm not sure it's necessary, but you need to do something on the exterior walls. It's really cold. And one of the things Jim Hand has been hammering into me for years is we're going to have heat pumps. Heat pumps really only work well if the building is not leaky and it's insulated, because the temperature coming out is not as hot as an oil or gas furnace. So it's designed to maintain comfortable space, once it's up there at temperature, and just keep it there. So we really feel on the committee, it's essential to finish up the insulating. This room is done, but there's a lot more to do. By my rough calculations, there's about $276,000 left in the grant that has not been spent on the heat pumps and this room. So $13,000 was the estimate for sealing, air sealing here and next door. Absolutely essential. So that still leaves $263,000 for insulation, solar, EV chargers, and renovating the bathroom. And the audit said the solar, I don't know where they came up with a number, I didn't look at it, would be about $25,000 for a 14.5 kilowatt system with a payback for 10 years. That's nothing. 10 years is. And the EV chargers, again, I don't know where they came up with this number, 375 for one level 1, one level 2. I can't go along with that recommendation. I think we should have 2 level 2 chargers here and 2 level 2 chargers at the public safety building. You have to have that before people can switch to an electric car. You can't have a car without charging. And to me, it doesn't make sense to do a level 1. It's silly. You get only 5 miles of charge in an hour with level 1. It's useless. But you get about 30 miles of charge per hour on level 2. That's worth it. So again, the installation is crucial. And I guess I'm curious what you folks would like the Energy Committee to do. I mean, there's 5 of us here. You know, we're a dedicated, hardworking group, and we just need some guidance. I contacted 2 insulation folks. They're both willing to come and look. One suggested we do remove the fiberglass insulation from the walls that are above the ceiling and foam that and as far up as they can reach on the roof. And that would accomplish a couple of major things. The exterior wall, the fiberglass it's 3.5 inches. It's nothing. And it leaks around the fiberglass. And in the audit, they talked about one of the major leaks is where the wall meets the roof. So that foaming on the exterior wall up to the roof would take care of that problem. Now, the big leakage is where the front door is. If you notice, you come in and at the door, it's a ceiling, there's something above you. Well, apparently there's no break between that space and what's inside the door. The ceilings are mingled. So at the bare minimum, it has to be something put up and insulated to stop the outside air from coming in. So again, those are pretty straightforward. Exterior walls, I'm not sure. People can, insulating guys can disagree. I think if we put 2 inches of polyiso foam on the inside, you keep the exterior. It's not as good as 4 inches on the outside, but the comfort level would increase. The insulation would help reduce energy use. It's a lot better than nothing. So, and again, what I'm looking for is some guidance of what you'd like us to do, how much you want us to get involved in this process.
I think to a large degree, you may have just answered quite a bit of that question. I think the research that you're putting into this is more helpful to us than any direction we could give you as to what you should do. I mean, you guys have spent an amazing amount of time on this, and we appreciate the effort and the energy put into it. I'm speaking for myself, not for the rest of the board.
No, I think the one thing that I do want to just make sure is that we don't drift from what we had asked for and like the charging stations and the solar panels. I don't think those are in our initial grant application. So I think we have to be very careful that we spend money in the way that the grant allows us to spend it. So I would just, make sure that we prioritize things that were in the original application. And then, if there's ways to do it to get more bang for your buck by you know, doing it a different way, I think we should definitely explore that. And you know better than I do certainly about how any of those things happen.
I think that, again, the number I came up with 237,000, I mean, you easily spend that on the insulating this town hall. So if you want to do solar panels or EV chargers, I guess that would be on your dime.
Don't we have a solar offset with the fields, Jim? And how much of that offset is covering town hall?
Thomas's project, I don't know exactly that, I believe, to 10%.
I had to look it up.
Savings.
You might want to come over to the podium too, because people can't hear you at home.
The audit was talking about adding maybe 10% more by doing the solar panels. But that's probably before switching to electric heat pumps. So we're going to use more electricity and less fuel oil. So the panels make more sense.
Yeah, I mean, could you conceivably go further with the solar than what you're currently proposing in order to have a bigger offset?
Yes, you could. What should be done, and when Scott first came, I suggested this, but you know, time gets by. I don't know the details of the arrangement. Typically, what he has done is he builds a project somewhere else. And then he net meters it back to here. And what they tried to do at that time was to match the size of kilowatt credits to your total bill. I would imagine the bill has gone up. It certainly would go up if you go to heat pumps and charging stations and that sort of thing. So there would be quite a bit that's not covered in the original contract. The original contract, because you put up no money, you get a 10% savings. That's, this is by memory what
I think,
we did. I don't
think it's right.
And I mean, that's the typical arrangement.
It's been a while, but my recollection is that our combined electric usage was over $100,000 a year. Consider water and sewer and all the pumping that we're doing. And that the credit was in the $8,000 a year range back when we started.
That's probably right. The trouble, but what you're all seeing in your home bills, back when this was done, electricity was probably 15 cents a kilowatt. Right now, residentially, I don't know what the bill mix is here. It's between 19 and 20 cents. And not to get into what just happened today, but it's going to go up considerably. Because if we can't make electricity with renewables, we're going to be buying oil and gas electricity. So it's going to go up. We're lucky in Vermont, we have, I think, every 2 or 3 years, they're allowed to ask for rate increases, and we're not like New Hampshire. But in any case, if you put a solar system on here and you owned it, then you'd get 100% of what was delivered from that solar system.
Yeah, we just, this grant doesn't provide money for solar or for.
I don't.
So, yeah, so we have to just, I think we should definitely consider that, but as it relates to your specific question, it sounds like the heat pumps are obviously a priority, and in order for those to be effective, we have to work on the envelope or the insulation situation. So I think, you know, that would be where I would focus my energy if I were you.
Yeah, and the heat pumps are electric, so your bill's gonna go up. See, hopefully with the building in better shape, it's gonna be less costly than buying fuel oil, which is what you use here.
Is that helpful with Heidi's comments?
Yes, and I agree with Heidi. I think like this money from the MERP grant should be spent for insulating the building. It's crucial. But I just, plant the seed. You might want to allocate some money for panels and EV chargers in the future.
Steve, I'm sorry to leave you hanging. I wanted Carl to finish his presentation. Go ahead, Steve.
That's okay. I've got 4 or 5 things and I'm going to cover them and then you can respond. I think I believe in both you and Heidi. I think you need to look at and prioritize. I think a lot has to do with building maintenance and needs to be figured into the capital plan if you move forward with those things. I have a question for Carl. Who did the energy audit, number one? And does the select board question the added verbiage to Carl's document, and does that hold the select board's hands to the wall? It seems to me that added verbiage is going to cost us quite a bit of money.
The purchasing policy?
I think that's what you're referring to.
Is that what you're talking about, Steve?
Yes.
I'm not sure how to answer that. My experience is that the electrical options are cheaper, not more expensive in the long
Well,
run.
I mean, you're talking about lawnmowers, et cetera, electric, which is fine because I have an electric lawnmower. But however, when you get into these gang mowers and you get into that heavy duty equipment and that kind of thing, you're probably talking 2 or 3 times the amount of money that we're going to spend on this kind of issue. And I understand the carbon, I understand all that. And, half the problem with the carbon tax issue up in Montpelier is the expense of all this that goes on with the redevelopment of these things. And I don't think we look at that. And that's why the carbon tax is basically on hold. And I think as far as a community, we really need to be conscious of that as well.
Well, Steve, not this past fall, but the one before, Jim organized a demonstration at the rec area for commercial lawnmowers, only commercial. And the fellow came from Greenworks and he had the numbers and it was astonishing. The electric option winds up being so much cheaper than the gas option. It's unbelievable. It's, maintenance, cost. Again.
So anyway, I don't want to get bogged down in this because we still have some agenda to cover, but the recommended changes to the purchase policy simply says that we will, if we decide to incorporate that into the policy, says that we will take these things into consideration. It doesn't mandate that we do anything. And through that exploration process, if it's shown that we can save money and get higher quality by going in a certain direction, then we'll go in that direction. But it's general guidelines and principles, not any kind of a mandate. We had allocated 10 minutes for this discussion, so.
Okay, we gotta keep moving.
Thank you.
Anything else on the Energy Committee? Thank you for all your hard work, everyone. Yeah, just so people at home can hear you. Thank you, Tim.
I think you could capture it by saying total cost of ownership. That's the motivation of this. We're not, if things turn out electric, awesome. But if you consider the total cost of ownership over the life cycle of the, whatever it is you're using, that's kind of the point.
Yeah, we understand it. Thank you, Tim. Moving along, Scott, town manager updates.
Sure. So there's been some changes to the open meeting law. I include that in your packet. So I'll quickly go over some of those highlighted ones. Requires the posting of meeting recordings when the minutes are posted as opposed to when the minutes are approved. Changes the definition of undue hardship. We don't have that problem. Adds an exception to the law's recording requirements for public body site inspections. So you don't have to record when you go visit a site, when the whole board goes out to a site visit. Allows meeting notices to be posted in neighboring towns. That doesn't affect us. Requires agendas to include sufficient details on the specific business to be discussed and details on a proposed executive session, if included. It adds the requirement to exit executive session, not just enter it. So in the past, we just voted to go in, but need to vote to come out also.
So do we take that action in the executive?
You do.
And do we
Okay.
take minutes in those sessions?
You do not have to, no.
So
And then if we have any unruly people, you have reasons now that you can remove them if they disturb the lawful assembly or the meetings of purposes. And they changed the language a little bit about the public body versus advisory public body. So there's no more non-advisory boards. You're either a public body or an advisory public body. And there's more to come on this next year. We're going to talk about more changes to the open meeting law next year. But that's what they got through this year. Some other legislative changes I wanted to touch base briefly on. Yeah, so the local option tax was successfully increased from 70-30 split to 75-25 split. So that's going to be a big help to us. We also talked about going 80-20, which is what the league was pushing for. And that's a possibility next year. When I testified to the Senate Government Ops Committee about this, they were surprised that we didn't approach them for the 80-20 split at the beginning of the session. So they were too deep into the session to be able to make that much of a change, but they recommended coming back next year. So we're going to come back next year.
Right.
The pilot funds, the league is still pushing for the pilot funds to be reimbursed to towns, $12 million surplus right now. But I've seen piggy banks up there that never get sent back. So I wouldn't be surprised it didn't happen. 679 bills were introduced, 97 passed, 84 after the vetoes. But the biggest impact is the chip, biggest impact to us is the chip law shift. And I think I put this in this packet, maybe not. Let me just quickly cover it. Okay. That's the Community Housing and Infrastructure Program. Right? So they're claiming that it'll forever change Vermont's approach. Yeah, and it'll bring billions of dollars of public investment to communities across the state to facilitate the construction of housing projects. All market projects must meet the but-for test, which demonstrates that without this break, without this funding, then this project would never happen. But affordable developments are exempt from the but-for requirement. And one other key point of this is that the town or the developer or third-party sponsor could be the infrastructure investment debtor. So the Housing Task Force has got this, and as you know, they're meeting the 10th and the 17th, Jonathan.
Yes. Yep.
For the airport road one, but this is a big win for the legislature.
Absolutely.
And there are more details coming out because they don't have all the details finalized. Riverwalk Bridge was opened. Thanks everybody to show up. We showed up.
Sorry, can I make a comment on that real quick?
Go ahead.
I've had several folks reach out to me, and I also noticed if I was there, first of all, it's beautiful. But I did notice that there's some gaps in the fencing, particularly right next to the bridge, which I could actually get through, and you would drop significantly. And I know it's a bridge, it's over a river, but for liability purposes, I think.
Were you there when we tied stuff across? Because right after, pretty much people had left and we were all standing there.
No.
This isn't gonna work. So we
Yeah.
got a bunch of yellow tape and we tied yellow tape across those little sections. And I think they're still there from.
They are. I was over there this afternoon. but
Maybe we
It's
should do
not,
it better.
yeah, it could be broken easy.
I know they're gonna, there is a plan to fix that and they're manufacturing
More railing?
a railing that closes those gaps. But we could do something a little more substantial.
Maybe like some chicken wire or something like that.
Chicken.
Should we go bigger than that?
I've got some in my house, you know.
Why, that would work, right?
I would, but I don't
I know,
think
it's
adds
seriously.
the
Rarely.
ambiance of it, but,
The other thing I think we should get out there, if people are watching, was there were complaints that the steps had gone away.
Yeah.
And if you weren't there, you didn't hear the executive director of the Riverwalk Committee state specifically that they're going to rebuild the steps that used to go down to the river. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that there were complaints that this was a waste of the town's money, but it wasn't wasn't even, I don't know what percentage we were total, but it
Less
was
than 10.
less than 10%.
And it was ARPA money,
And it was-
not taxpayer.
Yeah,
And it's not taxpayer funds.
It's interesting how everything gets criticized on social media, but I did happen to look at this, and one comment was that the money would have been better spent on a facelift for the Equinox Hotel. We have nothing to do with the Equinox Hotel. So I'm
Still waiting on that paycheck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry to derail.
All right.
No, I'm glad you did. That came up after you left.
So I'll be on vacation the next couple of weeks after this week, but I'll be in and out of the office off and on to do payroll and things like that. So I'll be reading emails, and you can always call me or text me. Finally, some good news, not finally good news, but finally I'm done. Good news,
Lastly.
comma. So the education tax rates went down from Manchester. So when we set the tax rate next meeting, there's a chance to do some good things with that. The homestead went down to 1.0832. Last year it was 1.24. And the non-homestead went down to 1.28, and last year was 1.31.
Wow.
So we're very surprised and almost didn't believe it. I had to go and double check, and then we looked in the official website and couldn't be in effect.
Be sure something wasn't like transposed. and-
Yeah.
Does did they release the CLA now? Do we know what the common level assessment is?
I don't think so. I haven't seen that. It usually comes in the letter, actually, you get it from the letter. But this is on the state website right now.
I heard that it was the CLA was in our favor. So we'll see.
well, that'll help too.
Yeah.
Grand list is up 1% almost.
Steve, quickly. Steve?
I want to go back to the Riverwalk Bridge for a second, if I may. I shared comments to the board, and one of the biggest comments is security. Close the park at dusk, is that an option? I was told that police are walking at night. I don't know if that's a thing to do. Security is going to be an issue, and we need to address it right away. And I think the select board really needs to get that into their hand.
Anytime that there's a bridge over any kind of a chasm, there's a potential for an accident. I can remember one colorful local character throwing one of our police officers off the Mill Pond Bridge. I think you remember that, Steve. But all we can do is, we could put up signs that it was closed, but I don't think, unless you patrol it, there's no way to enforce that. I think we can try to make it as safe as possible, and we're working on that. And other than that, it's a bridge over a ravine. So
Next to an existing bridge that's been there forever.
yeah,
So-
right.
Is there any plans for cameras? People were asking because they don't want to see the marble defaced with graffiti. And I don't know whether or not.
Well, thanks for planting that seed in the minds of.
That's not.
I think that seed is long thin. What's the, sown.
Yeah.
Seed is sown.
I just have some concerns about the Riverwalk. I was one of the people on Facebook addressing everything, and regardless that I find it pointless. Besides maybe having a better selfie spot. I loved the trees. I have walked it thousands of times. I've spent every day there. My issues are the dangers that I've seen. And like I said, the tape wrapped around that, a child or an elderly person with dementia or a pet could easily fall through. I did walk it today, and they had already put up something a little more secure, which I appreciate because my actual concerns are safety. So I have an issue with the ADA compliant ramp going between the two buildings to aggressively tall stairs. They just need to have a sign so people don't keep going down there. Like I saw people with strollers and they go and then they have to turn around and walk the old way. It's only ADA compliant from the green. I've talked to Stephen Drunzik and he answered a lot of my questions, which I appreciate. Also the railing next to the marble stairs, which are already a little wobble, like precarious, is not attached at all on the ends. So when I grabbed it, I almost fell, and I'm young. I can catch myself. If that was my mother, she might not have survived. So I just think that needs to be like addressed rather quickly, because I felt like this might have been a rushed opening because they had to be there at some, like a very specific time to get it done. I just want things to be a little bit safer, because in the long run, that's like, we don't need someone to harm themselves right off the bat, because that, God, would that just look awful for how much money was put into it. Also, maybe a few more trash cans, because as someone who used to walk it daily, I would always bring a bag so I could pick up trash and move debris out of the way.
You appreciate that.
I mean, I used to do that at the quarries too, because I would get mad at people and be like, but also I've noticed human feces on the trail on several occasions, because there's no porta potties or any telling people where they could go use a restroom nearby. I nannied, I took care of old people. I just walked up and grabbed dog bags and picked it up and threw it out myself.
Public restroom right by.
Yeah, but there's no signs letting people know that they're there. And I think maybe it was kids playing at the water or something, but it's happened on more than one occasion. So like a large sign that says restrooms this way, or something on the green where it could be communicated better, especially now that this is going to have a bigger draw for that, is a concern. Because I have found it several times, because I say I walk it daily, or I used to. I understand that it's not quite finished. I noticed that there's fixtures for lighting, so clearly that's going to be established sometime in the future. But I did not see any towards the stairs between the two buildings. I didn't see any that will light the stairs, and those are very steep and dangerous to begin with. I just wish they had some lighting to make sure that's a thing, because people will be going there at night.
There is one there.
They have
On the
lights.
first station of the stairs before you turn left.
Okay, they have one, because I walked.
I saw it today and just noticed it. That's why I say.
Perfect. Then they put it in since the last time I walked through the stairwell. But those are the concerns. I just want it to be safe, so nothing tragic happens before it's fully completed. Because I could easily see someone taking a selfie in their toddler, going playing around the corner of the bridge and slide right in. Like, it's just a lot of things that are concerning, and I'm more worried for.
Within 10 minutes of us cutting the ribbon, someone had gotten their knee stuck between two of the with the railing supports. So I don't know how it happened.
I mean, I know exactly how it happened. But you can't, human error is gonna happen. I just, these are some bigger things that, if they could be quickly addressed. Like I said, I talked to Steven and he didn't know the railing was loose. I have video footage of it if you it's pretty aggressive. I just don't want anyone to get hurt, since I probably have spent thousands of hours walking and hanging out on the tree that's been flattened so people can walk across the river. I sit there and read books all the time, and I just don't want anyone to harm themselves. For how much money was put into it, it was disappointing to see all these really big issues that could cause harm. Like, it was a little bit rushed.
Thank you.
All right, thank
Thank you.
We still have an executive session planned. Is there any other business at this level?
Sorry, really quick, just to reiterate that the Housing Task Force does have the meetings at the Manchester Community Library. They're at 6 o'clock on the 10th. DEW and Brent Herman group will be presenting, and then on the 17th will be the airport partners, so the Paul Caraccio group will be presenting, and then there'll be an open discussion for community members to ask questions and whatnot about the different plans, and then hopefully that will lead to a recommendation from the Housing Task Force.
We still have a minute for board comments.
Yeah.
Other business, we have other business.
Right, out of it.
I just want to say that the fire department did an amazing job along with other fire departments in the area for Ted Hopkins service on Saturday. Was it Saturday or Sunday? Sunday. Well, I was there. I should know, but of course.
Saturday was a bridge opening.
And it was just fantastic and very, just perfect. And so I just want to say once again how much we appreciate Ted Hopkins and his service to the town.
Perfect. Prior to a motion to go into executive session, it's very likely that we will run past the 9 o'clock cutoff time. And since we can't take an action in executive session, I think it would be appropriate for us to take an action now to extend the
Move to
meeting.
extend the meeting.
Second.
Seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and now to go into executive session for purposes of personnel discussion.
Move to go to executive session for purposes of personnel discussion.
And you have to invite whoever you want. It's party motion.
The town clerk?
Up to you.
Well, I don't think we know.
Up to Heidi, she's making the motion.
And I'd like to invite the town clerk into the executive session
And the town manager.
and the town manager.
We have to add the premature disclosure of which.
No, not under this particular subject.
Okay.
So I need a second.
Second. All in favor, say aye. 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 Okay, we're going into exec.
In the office.
It's right on the table over there.
Did we miss the?
No, we talked about it during the rates and the fees.
Yeah, yeah. Review.
Didn't know if there was more detail.
You here for that?
Yeah, he was there.
We have to the fun.
Okay.
So are we doing the 15th?
And the.
We're doing 3 this month.
Yeah, right.
Is that right?
What?
We're doing 3 this month?
We only need two.
So let's have a summer, people.
Yeah. No, if Hand signed in when he came in, but did you get him?
So we don't need to do 5.
Yeah.
Yes.
just the 10.
So do you want to do? How about like, because the task force is meeting on the 10th, what would we do like
We're meeting the 10th and the 17th.
what if we do like a 15th meeting right in the middle of that, of those two? And then. I guess that doesn't really help us that much.
Well, you'd go then August 5th.
Oh, yeah,
So you'd have, and once you go by that week, you'd have a couple weeks off.
15th and the 5th?
Yeah, 15th and then the 5th.
All right. Okay.
Recording stopped.